Hi guys, this is GSMDome.com and I'm here finally with the Sony Xperia 1 Mark 6. I know it's been 7 months since its debut, but we finally scored one, and I have to say it's full of pleasant surprises. It gets rid of the remote control format of the narrow approach. It has front-oriented stereo speakers and the biggest zoom on the market right now. I'm talking about 7.1x zoom plus continuous zoom. It has the physical camera key here and also a gaming feature or two, which allows you to turn up the frame rate up to 240 Hz, to the refresh rate, excuse me, up to 240 Hz. It's got Wi-Fi 7, it's got USB-C, it can connect to Sony Alpha cameras. It's basically one of the most underestimated camera phones of the year. The price has dropped quite a bit, should be below 1000 euros these days, so it's time for the full review of the Sony Xperia 1 Mark 6. Okay, so first things first, it's been years now that Sony has insisted on the elongated and narrow format, the TV remote control as people call it, 21:9 aspect ratio, but finally things have changed. Now the screen is 19.5:9, that's the aspect you're getting here, is no longer 21:9. The diagonal stays at 6.6 inches and the measurements are 8.2 millimeters in thickness, which is rather beefy, and it weighs 192 grams. The predecessor, by the way, was a bit thicker and a bit lighter. It's still IP65, IP68 certified. It can take some water and dust. The backside is very grippy and makes an interesting sound like that, as if you were rubbing a jacket. You know those raincoats? It's like a raincoat. And it's got a lot of, I would say, lines here, a ridged pattern, in order to increase once again the grip. However, it can dig into your palm if you hold it tight during phone calls. Now, the materials used here are glass at the backside and aluminum for the metal frame, although you'd swear this is not glass, this is polycarbonate, which is pretty interesting. It's very linear texture here. So once again, that's the sound it makes once you rub your nail on it. It's a very interesting finish, this one, for the glass. It comes in black, silver or special green. It doesn't differ that much looks-wise from the predecessor, except for being a bit wider. Seems pretty resilient, and once again it has a physical camera button here which you can actually press, unlike the Apple one which you're supposed to just touch because it's capacitive. Okay, so we're at the display department and we're going to enjoy a video, and let's check it out. Of course, Sony usually delivers quality screens, it's no exception here. However, they've gotten rid of the 4K panel. Seemed a bit overkill to have a 4K panel on a phone. Now we have a Full HD Plus resolution, 2340 over 1080 pixels. The panel is of the LTPO OLED variety, 6.5 inches, 120 Hz, HDR support, BT 2020 for the color palette. The protection is Gorilla Glass Victus 2, and we got an 86.5% screen to body ratio, which is better than the predecessor, but however lower than the iPhone 16 Pro Max and its 91.4 screen to body ratio. Now, as far as the brightness is concerned, we have it here for the Xperia 1 Mark 6. So we go here, brightness test, an amazing 1400 lux units. It goes above Galaxy Z Fold 6, the Asus ROG Phone 8 Pro, and quite a few other handsets. It's only surpassed by the Google Pixel 9 models, the Huawei Pura 70. It also beats the Galaxy S24 series and the Magic 6 Pro, so all in all a pretty impressive setup here. Now, settings are quite generous, and this is a phone which is meant for photographers to connect to their Sony Alpha, and you're going to see that here. You got image quality settings, you got a creator mode, a standard mode, real-time HDR, video image enhancement, high refresh rate. You can go even higher than 120 Hz when you're gaming, white balance, brightness, adaptive brightness, and dark theme, and well, that's about it. Pretty impressive screen all in all. Now we're moving further and we're trying to dig into the phone and its specs, so probably they're listed here. Unless they aren't, and we're going to have to resort to some other things like the IDA app. Once again, this is a flagship which was launched 7 months ago, so that's why the specs may feel a bit underwhelming compared to what's appearing right now. Once again, Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 processor with the Adreno 750 GPU, and you're also getting 12 gigs of RAM here, LPDDR5X, which is good for gaming and future proofing, and also 512 gigabytes of storage. We have the version with 256 though, UFS 4.0. There's no microSD that we know of. And as far as the testing goes, let's see what we achieved. So first things first, we should have Antutu available here, Antutu 10 to be more specific. We're placed on the 12th spot, which is actually not bad. We're beating the Galaxy S24 and the iPhone 16 Pro Max, which is actually quite impressive. But we got beaten by the Honor Magic 6 Pro and the Galaxy S24 Plus and 11 other models. Still not bad for a 7-month-old phone. We can also got beaten by the OnePlus 12, just so you know. When it comes to Geekbench 6 in the multi-core test, we're on the 15th spot, above the flips and the folds of the year and the S24 Fan Edition. And I have to say that we're doing better on the single core test here, above the Galaxy S24 Plus, but below the iPhones and below some Honor and OnePlus phones. And finally, when it comes to the 3D mark, you can see it here on the 6th spot above the OnePlus 6, on the 17th spot above the iPhone 16 Plus. So all in all, I would say it's pretty decent for its age. Now, when it comes to throttling, we also did a CPU throttling test and we lost about 34% performance after 15 minutes of run. It's not bad. It's better than the Galaxy S24 Ultra, for example, but definitely not better than some of the other phones out there. Like, let's see one example here. Like, it's mostly mid-rangers, to be honest. Flagships usually do lose a lot to throttling. iPhone 16 Pro Max seems to handle that a bit better, and the S23 Ultra as well. Okay, so benchmarks are quite satisfying. When it comes to the temperature, we go here. We achieve 39.1 degrees Celsius in benchmarks, 32 degrees Celsius in gaming. So all in all, pretty good cooling. So I want to get back to what I said earlier. Sorry for that. There is a microSD card slot here, just so you know, so you can expand the storage in case you want more. Now, as far as the battery is concerned, it's a rather large 5000 mAh unit, lithium polymer, which charges at 30 watts via wire and 15 watts wireless. There's even reverse wireless charging here, which is quite impressive. There's no charger in the box, not even a cable to power up the battery. So the results are, I would say, stunning. So since Sony got rid of the 4K screen, it now achieves 33 hours of video playback, 33 hours and 6 minutes to be more precise, beating every other flagship from the current year and ever, except for Realme and the Oppo Find X8 Pro with the latest Snapdragon 8 Elite. So impressive battery. The trend continues with the continuous usage. We're placed in the top 10 on the 9th spot. We're beating the Huawei Pura 90, Google Pixel 9 and several other phones, including the S24 series, thanks to this combo of Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, large battery and a low resolution screen. The charging requires 1 hour and 26 minutes with a non-official charger. Could be better, but after 30 minutes you're at 50%, so it should be fine considering how much battery you're getting here. Now, on the acoustic front, we used to praise Asus ROG phones for having front-oriented screens. Well, it's only Sony now, so one speaker is here and one speaker is here. So yeah, front-oriented speakers are available here, stereo speakers, and usually Sony delivers a very good quality when it comes to sound and also a bunch of tuning, as they usually deliver not only for the screen but for sound as well. Sound and vibration, playback quality. You have here music, video, audio effects, recommended, enhanced quality, spatial sound, 360 audio, and even you can start recording yourself with reducing noise and even a dedicated app to create music. It's called Music Pro, but let's actually listen to a tune and then we can judge what this device has to offer. I'm actually quite impressed by the bass here, not the loudest volume I've ever heard. We also have Snapdragon sound, by the way, 24-bit acoustics, high-res wireless audio, and let's see some figures from our tests here. So we go to the volume power, and in the volume power we achieved 89.5 decibels at the top and 88.8 decibels at the bottom. This was done with a typical acoustic sample test, so we surpassed quite a few flagships out there. Let's see, the top one is actually a record all time, the highest, almost the highest placed phone ever, second spot with 89.5. Usually the top speaker delivers in a much lower rate, so that's pretty impressive. When it comes to gaming, a modest 88.3 decibels. Told you that there's not much volume here. I expected more, but we have headphones, so yeah, there's that. Possibly the loudest earpiece I've ever heard recently. Now finally we can talk about the camera, which makes this device a sort of camera phone. Okay, so first things first, most of the sensors here are taken from the predecessor. We start with the main one. It's a 48 megapixel main camera with f1.9 aperture and optical image stabilization. It's joined by a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera with autofocus, and there's also some novelty. The telephoto 12 megapixel camera with continuous optical zoom between 3.5x and 7.1x compared to the 3.5x up to 5.2x of the Xperia 1 Mark V. There's optical image stabilization of the telephoto camera, and we can also do macro capture at 4 centimeters. For the selfies, we have a punch hole here, not in the screen but above the screen once again, for a 12 megapixel camera. Now, there are also some extras. You can see here the Zeiss T-Star coating, which combats ghosting and annoying reflections. Not many companies are collaborating with Zeiss these days. Vivo used to do it at some point, not sure if they're doing that anymore. And you can activate the camera once again by the physical button here, which takes a bit of force to press. And finally, Sony has changed the camera interface design. I used to always criticize it. Now it's minimalistic and simple, and I love it. We got telephoto macro options, full resolution options, bokeh video, live streaming, panorama, slow motion, video capture, full HD or 4K, even 4K 120. Sony used to do that years ago before Apple introduced it this year. We got a photo capture here, and as you can see, we got a 7.1x optical zoom, which is unparalleled in 2024. We got bokeh capture, we got pro photo with a lot of tweaks, and pro video as well. So finally, a coherent camera app, which is no longer confusing for new users. Okay, so that's about it, I would have to say. The sensors are similar to what we got last year, but there's some novelty here. All 4 Xperia 1 Mark VI camera seems to be using the same image sensor as last year. We have a stacked CMOS sensor with 2-layer transistor pixel technology for the main camera, and once again, everything tops at 4K 120. We don't have 8K capture here. The front camera has a Sony IMX6X3 sensor. It has fixed focus, sadly, and 4K 60 frames per second capture. There is no time of flight camera here or laser autofocus here. Sony is relying on AI scene depth information. So yeah, there used to be extra sensors for that, for the whole laser and time of flight. And now let's get straight to the samples. Okay, so first things first, we're talking about the selfies. Is the exact same camera as last year, and things haven't changed that much. We still don't have autofocus, we have fixed focus here, and we have detailed texture here when it comes to the hair, to the eyes, and to the beard. So yeah, things check out. Now let's see things in more sun. A very good bokeh, I would dare to say even better than what the iPhone is offering. For a while now, iPhones have been, well, cutting out ears or other weird details, and I would say that the Pixels and this phone and maybe the Huawei's are doing the best selfies right now. Samsung also does good ones, but weird bokeh cut at times. So one of the best selfies on the market, especially if you're talking about lower resolution cameras. Natural tones, good looking texture, very efficient bokeh, and well, there are still times when the HDR doesn't quite cut it. Speaking of HDR, let's go to the daytime photos, the regular daytime photos. I have plenty of colors in these shots with the fence. Okay, so the colors are pretty well calibrated. It's a sunny morning, that's the nutshell that we're dealing with here. So this is what we're getting on this sunny morning. The colors are pretty natural. It's an aspect where the camera really checks out. Even the ultra wide shots will definitely keep the color calibration, which is something you don't see every day. The HDR is a bit shy when it comes to the full sunlight ahead of us. There's also this bright red here, but once again pretty well calibrated, it's not exaggerated. Sometimes between the streets there are problems with the HDR, which isn't able to clear the light as good as it should be. But in general, it's a pretty pragmatic camera, the likes of which you'd see on an iPhone or a Samsung. And of course, there's the aspect of the zoom, which is definitely impressive. Even at 7x, you'll be impressed by the results. Natural sky color calibration, plenty of details. The biggest drawback is the HDR that keeps hesitating every once in a while. Okay, so several more selfies here, once again in full sunlight. And check it out. So if you want to properly test the zoom, but before that we got a bunch of macros here, or we attempted to. Things are fine, but there's a bit of blur where we wouldn't like it to be. Details are pretty impressive, maybe not as impressive as the Huawei Pura 70 series, but still pretty good. This is a wheel, a panoramic wheel from the Christmas market in Bucharest, and we started zooming in. This is actually the normal camera shot, the ultra wide shot. This is the 3.5x zoom, and this is the 7x zoom. But we kept zooming in and things remain mighty impressive with a lot of details, even as you zoom in yourself on the screen or you do cropping on the on the PC, excuse me. Okay, so several more shots here. Once again with the zoom, the first aspect that comes to mind is probably the fact that if you're at a concert, it will definitely help you capture photos of the artists. Natural colors once again, but don't rely too much on the HDR or you'll be disappointed. Excellent texture of the fur and of these huskies, and not only in close-up but also in the distance. And speaking of close-up, we do have some textures here. Cloth texture, but there's a bit of a problem with the focus when it happens very, very up close. Okay, so these are daytime shots. We're done with the zoom. It's an excellent aspect here. So let's go to the low light shots now. Of course, the same Christmas market, the same Christmas fair looks more spectacular during the nighttime. I have to say it's pretty impressive here with the fact that we don't have exaggerated halos. We don't have overblown halos. It's one of the best flagships I've seen this year. I expected good things from Sony, but this actually goes above my expectation. I did mention halos, but they're a bit elongated towards the top here. But in general, they're quite decent compared to other flagships out there. I would say it feels more like a 2025 flagship than a 2024 one. It can fight the best. Definitely a rival for the iPhone 16 Pro Max, S24 Ultra, and the Huawei Puras. There's no night mode per se. The camera detects automatically the conditions and does the photo you want. You can deactivate it if you want to, pretty much like you're doing on the iPhone. Okay, so once again, excellent zoom and excellent night mode, night captures. And now let's see the videos we capture with this handset. So videos, this is the first video. I would say it's not as well stabilized as I would have liked it to. And there's a bit of a difference between how dark the face is and how bright the background is. You can do some vlogging with it, but I've seen better when it comes to flagships. Okay, let's try something else. So now we're measuring the color calibration and the stabilization. Excellent stabilization, by the way, but the colors feel a bit off if you ask me. The HDR is a bit hesitant. One of the best stabilizations I've seen here is in 4K 30 frames per second with a high quality. We're panning here. Pretty nice level of details, by the way. If you're watching this on a 4K TV set or on a 4K monitor, you'll be impressed by the level of detail. Okay, and in close-up and with a focus change, I'm pretty satisfied with the result. These are very fine details to focus on. Those leaves are very small and still the camera was able to focus on them and quickly change focus to the background. One of the snappiest focuses I've seen in recent history. And speaking of focusing on objects, once again, excellent details and texture here. Not much to object. And finally, for the zoom test, we should be able to find the wheel, the Christmas market wheel. We started slowly with a 2x, then 3.5x, and then between 3.5 and 7.1, it's that continuous optical zoom which never drops quality. You did see a slight hitch here. It's probably the 7.1 step, and even if we continue further than that, details will remain amazing. So amazing details when it comes to zoom. That's one of the core aspects here. And more panning. Even if the subjects are moving, the zoom remains impressive. Okay, and more shots here. Pretty good exposure, I have to say. But be careful with the HDR. And finally, the nighttime videos. Okay, so light sources are a bit overblown. And if you try to compensate for that, you'll wake up with too much darkness. There's a big discrepancy between too dark and too bright. You have to really be careful about that. You can create some memorable shots, but nothing out of the ordinary if you're comparing this to a phone from 1 or 2 years ago. So yeah, expect it slightly better from the nighttime videos. I also see some reflections which you'd usually see on the likes of an iPhone. Okay, we're done with the camera. So excellent zoom overall and pretty good selfies. And now let's talk and fast focus in video. Let's talk about connectivity. The phone has everything. So we're even getting an audio jack here, by the way, forgot to mention that. We also have Bluetooth 5.4. There's also support for A2DP, LE audio, aptX HD, aptX adaptive, lossless, Wi-Fi 7, which is activated once I updated the phone to Android 15. 5G, of course, there's NFC, and at the bottom there's an USB-C 3.2 port with OTG support and video output. There's native support for Sony Alpha cameras. You can connect your phone to your Sony Alpha camera and you can turn it into a monitor, and you can control it from the phone even. We also have a nano SIM and microSD, and we did a speed test. Well, not this one, speed test, and these are the results we achieved. So we achieved up to 200 megapers in download when it comes to 5G, and up to 200 megapers download, 30 megapers upload. That's what we're getting here. On Wi-Fi you can easily get 600-700 megapers. Okay, so software-wise, originally the phone came with Android 14, pulled it out of the box, it got Android 15 pretty fast, so it should get 2 more versions, Android 16 and 17 in the future. It's a pretty stock experience except for some things. The quick settings area looks a bit minimalistic, and to be honest, it's a bit antiquated. However, it's quite comfortable to have the options like this. Big and comfy, easy to press. It's not good looking, but it's a good idea. As usual, Sony opts for a monochrome approach for its settings area. And as usual, they have this sidebar here, which is actually finally usable. It's a dashboard with quick settings, display status, media status, and more. So basically, the whole sidebar has changed. Of course, you can also split the screen in two. You have the multi-window switch, so you can have combos here like this. You can have Chrome on half the screen and the maps half the screen. You can save those combos and have them handy. You can also have your pop-up window, so it can float above a split screen setup. And that's how multitasking happens on this phone. There's also a dashboard area here, which is basically a new name for the side sense if you want, and a lot of applications which you'll find pretty useful. You saw the camera. There's the external monitor here. You can connect the camera to serve as an external monitor for the phone. You also have Music Pro, which can help you create music. It's powered by Sony's technology. You can create a brand new project. You can start beatboxing into it. You can see this volume meter. You can have a metronome here. You can also do some editing with studio features. So yeah, it's no Sony Acid, but it's probably inspired by Sony Acid. This is the game enhancer area. So if you're entering a game, you're going to have a ton of features here. Actually, more than I expected. So if you go to the game mode, you can see all of them here. You can turn the screen refresh rate up to 240 Hz. It will add an extra frame between each frame. So yeah, FPS optimizer is basically behaving like a gaming phone, which I'm shocked to see on a phone which is not promoting as a gaming phone. Aside from that, we also have a video creator application, should be here somewhere. Video creator, change the icon. You can select some clips, do some custom editing if you want to. You can cut them, add text, filters, adjustments, aspect ratio, export stuff. It's no CapCut, but it does the job pretty fine. Okay, so we have reached the end of the review for the Sony Xperia 1 Mark VI. Let's talk about the pros and cons. On the cons, the design is very comfy if you're using the phone for anything, from your second screen for your camera, photo taking, and even gaming. Goodbye remote control design. We have an audio jack, we have a microSD card slot, we have premium acoustic with front-oriented stereo speakers. I have a periscope camera with the biggest zoom on the market in 2024, continuous optical zoom, which is very useful. The battery life is gigantic. We have Android 15 already on the device, very fast compared to other phones out there. Also native support for Sony Alpha. What else? Good stabilization, very fast focus, and nice selfies plus quality filming. On the cons, there's no charger in the box, there's not even a cable in the box. There are some HDR problems when filming and taking photos. We're only getting 3 years of Android updates. The price was pretty high at the debut, but it's more okay now. And it still remains a camera for professionals. If you properly tune it, you can get rid of most problems, but less than before. Finally, the camera app has been upgraded. So at the end, this flagship, well, I actually enjoyed it more than I expected. It delivered more to me in the gaming department compared to my expectations. I mean, look at these options. I mean, they're gaming phone worthy, I would have to say. Focus settings, display, sound, multitasking, and more. Recording and even streaming are available on this phone. So you can buy it as a gaming phone, you can buy it as a multimedia consumption phone with 33 hours of video playback, you can buy it as a concert phone with excellent microphones and excellent zoom, and all in all it's a pretty satisfying experience. But you may not buy it as a vlogging phone, as the selfie camera needs some improvement in the video department. So gaming, music, and concerts are the core for this handset, and of course second screen for your Sony Alpha camera. That's it from GSMDome.com. Goodbye.